And this is September 7th, a Friday, 2001. And the new general had just come in. General Tommy Franks came in and took over as the commander of CENTCOM for General Zinni. General Zinni went on to become the special envoy to Israel. So I went to the theater, and we were all there. The entire CENTCOM J2 had been ordered there. The J2 is the intelligence section of any command. The Department of Defense has broken down the whole world into different commands. Central Command's area of responsibility is the Middle East. And their J2, the J2 of any command, is the intelligence section. They have all different kind of intelligence, human intelligence, physical intelligence, measurements and signatures intelligence, ELINT, TechInt, PhysInt, SODINT, all these intelligences. So I was there, and the press was there, and the press conference was wrapping up, and General Franks was, he said, all right, look, I have time for one more question. And so I was sitting on the left-hand side of the theater about 10 rows back, and there was a major sitting behind me about 3 rows back on the other side of the aisle. And he stood up and he had a piece of paper in his hand, and the general pointed to him, and that major asked, and he was reading this question, so I think somebody gave him the question. And he said, General, what is our biggest threat, aside from, what's going on in our AR over in the Middle East, what would you say our biggest threat is? And General Franks said, domestic Islamic radical terrorism in the United States, within the United States, in our borders. So the meeting wrapped up. That was the last question, and I walked out of there, and I headed home. And on Monday, Donald Rumsfeld, just like you said, he got up and did a press conference, and he told the citizens of the United States of America that they had lost $2 trillion in taxpayer money. And I think all of that information was in Building 7. So the day after that press conference was the 9/11 attacks that took down the Twin Towers and Building 7. And that became the bigger story, the 9/11 attack. And that wiped under the carpet the whole fact that we've been paying all this tax money, and they're just misspending it. They lost $2 trillion. Nobody said a word about it since. Where's our money, and why are we still paying these taxes that aren't even legal? It's really just extortion from a company that has secluded itself or what is it, sequestered itself into the District of Columbia, which isn't even a state, and they're forcing us to pay taxes at gunpoint. Otherwise, they'll take, like Wesley Snipes, he didn't pay his taxes, they send him in jail. They make an example out of him, and they make us scared to not pay this ridiculous extortion fees that they're charging us. So that they can set up places like Northern Command, whose area of responsibility is Canada, the United States, and Mexico, and their J2 spying on Americans, on us citizens.
Well, yeah.
So we've been invaded by a corporation.
Yeah, and by spying, let's face it, when we were talking before, and I have done a lot of research, since then, and I even have had a ex-FBI agent on my show, and he pretty much backed what you said. The point is, you got to watch what you say on the internet. You got to watch what you say on your phone. You got to watch what you say around your smart TV. And I don't care, people, if you don't believe that, if they're interested in you, they're going to listen to what you say. And
I hope they are listening, because they're going to realize that they listen to me long enough that those people listening to me are actually traitors to every living soul in this earth domain, that they know what they're doing. They're complicit in fraud, extortion, criminal activity against us. And I want them to listen to what I'm saying. I want them to go and hack into my computer and see the proof. Let them watch my movies and reality shows and read my books and listen to these interviews, because all I'm doing right now is my goal and my wife's goal with our production company is enlighten the people and let them know how they can be free, how they're enslaved, and what the solution is. And they are listening.
Oh, yeah. What really frustrates me, I'm 66 years old. I got Social Security. It's not a huge, if my wife wasn't working and we didn't, have what we had prior to it, you couldn't live on Social Security. It's impossible.
No.
And then they want to start, there's extra money in Social Security, right? We'll just keep borrowing it, right? But then it's going to go broke. But yet we can sit there, and we talk about the 2-point-some trillion they lost. How much have they lost since then? I mean, it's crazy. I mean, it's just like if you handed me $1 million to hold for you, and then the next day you come back and I go, well, here's $20.
Yeah.
Where did my money go? I don't know.
Yeah, they don't even know. And then they'll tell us, oh, well, national security, we can't really divulge that information. I'm sorry. Go back to work.
Yeah, well, probably what a lot of is, putting money in different projects, bribing people, buying information, giving it away to make people love us. That's what we're really good at, giving money away to make people love us. But you know what?
Oh, government contractors make huge money, too.
Oh, yeah. A lot.
I mean, think about it. Our tax money pays. When I was a government contractor, I was making, high 70s, getting into the low 80s for just going in and, I did work. I had a job. I was a data manager. I was a Pathfinder trainer. I was a counterterrorism analyst. These different jobs, and they all pay in the 70s, 80s, 90s, 100,000. You go overseas as a contractor, and right now you probably start out at about 175,000, and that's all coming out of the Department of Defense, the United States of America Corporation, and they make all of their money from our taxes, and they just take it. And then they said, I'm still really upset about Northern Command, and nobody's saying anything about it. Every chance I get, I'm saying something about it, that there's a major military command headquartered in Colorado that actively has a desk for probably every state in the United States, and at that desk is an analyst or a couple of analysts who are gathering all of the intelligence that's being collected on that state, and then they're writing reports about that state. And, they're probably writing reports about criminal activity, gangs, who's talking to who. When I was the Pathfinder trainer at SOCOM, there's this Pathfinder uses link analysis. It's a software platform. You take all of your intelligence and you plug it into, you put it into the database for Pathfinder, and then it uses link analysis to tell who's talking to who's related to who's working or communicating with who, so that, if I make a phone call, like this phone call right now we're connected through phone numbers, and those phone numbers go into a database, your name goes in there, my name goes in there, and now we're connected, and that's a link. And it does that with everybody, every entity that's being collected upon. So,
yeah,
and it's actively.
And what's really bad about that is, let's say down the road, they're looking to get something on you or me, then that's when they start bringing up all the dirt.
Yeah. So I guess you got to keep yourself clean. I'm lucky. I'm fairly clean. I haven't really done anything wrong. I mean, so I don't really have anything to hide.
Hey,
but
Ronald,
I don't care because I don't answer to that.
Ronald, look at this, okay? If they want to get dirt on any citizen, I swear to God, I mean, even the Catholic priest down the road at the church, right? I'm sure if they want to get dirt on somebody sometime, what they've done in their life, they can do it. And if they can't do it,
that's true.
And if they can't do it, guess what? They'll make it up.
And then they'll make you deny it. And that's really the power right there. And once it gets onto the news and in a newspaper and on TV, it doesn't matter whether it's true or not. It's all about, that first impression that people are going to get. So you can't really defend against that.
What's really funny is I've had some subjects on the show talking to some guests, right? Never had a problem with my phone lines, right? Skype or the regular landline. All of a sudden, we'll be in a conversation, and it might gone a little bit too far, where the guest might have, divulged a little bit too much information. Next thing I know, I get a loud squeal, or my phone line will go down, and I call the guest back up. I'm talking for a minute. It goes down. As soon as the guest is off, right? No problem.
Everything's back to normal. I'm sure you're on the radar. I'm sure your show's probably collected every night and listened to, and maybe there's an active agent. So if you guys are listening, we know what you're up to, and there is a solution, and which I totally really want to discuss tonight, because we actually are free, but not everybody realizes it, and there is a solution. And so even for those agents who are spying on us and they know that they're traitors, there is a way out, because they're just doing it for the money too. When I was working for the Department of Defense, I was doing it for the money too. It was all, that's why I didn't stay in the Army. I was like, I was an E5. I was making around $35,000, maybe $40,000 tops. And then I was just made the decision. I'm going to get out. And I'm going to go for the money. I'm going to work in the contractor world. I got my top secret clearance. I'll just jump from contract to contract and just keep working my way up in salary, and I could do that forever. And then my conscience got to me, and I realized I didn't want to be part of this wicked machine that is, just exploiting living souls and doing all kinds of disgusting things all over the world that we don't even know about.
No, and and it's funny that even because we talk a lot about UFOs and stuff like that, and it's strange, even when we start talking about that, if one of my guests take it a little too far, like I said, all of a sudden the phone keeps getting dropped, and it just makes you wonder, I
don't know. Last time I was on, I don't know if we discussed the DVD and the show I put out on Amazon Prime called True Stories.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Well, it's up there now. It's True Stories, Episode 2, A Lifetime of UFO Abduction. And I interviewed two people. The first guy, Daryl Miller, who I've known. I've been playing baseball with him since I was like 16 or 17. I've just known him my whole life. He works for the Parks and Recreation Department. And he saw a UFO. So we go and we talked about his experience. And then another close friend of mine who I've known pretty much my whole life, and he's a well-respected member of the community here in Florida, in the Space Coast of Florida. And I did an interview with him, but we did it where we didn't show his face. I sat him in a corner facing away from the camera, and we just, I recorded him from the back, and he told me his story of a lifetime of missing time, UFO abductions. In fact, he had family members see him come back from an area where a spacecraft had just took off, and he was a little kid when that happened. And he's had, several experiences of hours of missing time, usually from like maybe 2 or 3 in the morning until like 5 or 6 in the morning. So one of the things that I've been researching in that area is and this ties into a larger concept, but one of the things it's starting to look like is that these UFOs, these unidentified flying objects, the guy who I interviewed who remains anonymous, his father worked for the Department of Defense, and he knew about the UFO program. But my buddy would always ask his dad, listen, Dad, tell me, are UFOs real? And his father would tell him, they're not UFOs. We know what they are. So that tells me that, you got the corporations posing as governments, using the term national security to sequester away or hide away all this information that they're keeping from us. And I believe what I'm starting to see is I think there is a terrestrial base here on Earth genetic manipulation program. I think that's part of it. Usually when the government does something, they don't just do one thing on a program. They usually have a couple of different, several objectives for that project. And I think there's superior and far advanced technology than we can even imagine that exists in this Earth. I keep saying in this Earth or on this Earth in this domain because I've started researching information that is pointing to that we are not actually in base reality. Scientists are coming out and saying now that all this solid, what we think is solid, is actually just made up of light wave energy that we're transcribing in our mind as solid, but it's made up of light waves composed of a ones and zeros computer code, and that there's a strong probability that we are actually living inside of some type of an analog computer simulation on a flat infinite plane, or, a plane. I don't know how far it would go, but we're not. I'm starting to believe that we're not on a spinning globe, that UFOs might not even be coming from outside of this Earth domain. And what seems to be being suppressed is sometimes being suppressed to make us believe that it's being suppressed, that it makes us look toward outer space, that space aliens are visiting us. Well, that's really maybe a PSYOPs, a psychological operations program, to make us think that there's outer space, to make us think that we're living in a base reality, being visited by aliens from other planets, when, in fact, there might not be any other planets out